The Glendale Road Church of Christ proudly presents a weekly exploration of the Word of our living God. This is It Is Written with Minister John Dale.
Our study today is in our series, Tell Me the Stories of Jesus. We're looking today at faithful service, the parable of the talents, Matthew chapter 25, and I'd like to read verses 14 through 30. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability, and immediately he went on his journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. Likewise, he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who had received 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid. And I went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with inheritance, or that is, with interest. Therefore, take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. By way of introduction to this study, we notice in the previous parable, the parable of the 10 virgins, that the maidens are pictured as waiting for their Lord, stressing constant alertness. In today's parable, the servants are represented as working for their Lord, stressing faithful service. And so, when you put them together, both teach the Christian that as he watches, he must not be idle. That the best way to be ready is to be busy in the Master's business. The 5 virgins were simply not alert. They did not take oil with them. And when the bridegroom came, they were out buying more oil. And the point of the parable was alertness. Be ready, be ready, be ready. And so today's study builds upon that. Obviously, it's in the same context. It's in chapter 25 of the book of Matthew. But today's emphasis is on being at work for the Lord, being faithful to the charge that you've been given, as well as alert and watchful for the coming of the Lord. And so when you put them together, what you have is alert people who are energetic and not lazy, who are watchful, but at the same time are accomplishing a certain amount of work. Now, the entrusted talents, the master gave each servant a definite sum of money, varying depending on their ability. You will read any number of commentators who will tell you how much a talent is. I really don't know about today's money. Things have changed so much since I was in college, but when I was in college, we were told, and this is 40 years ago, that a talent was about $10,000 of our money in the 60s. So what would it be today? It doesn't really matter. The point is, it's a lot of money. A lot of money. So a 5-talent man would receive $50,000 of 1960 money and maybe a couple of $100,000 today, whatever it might be. Lots and lots of money. And it would be based on the ability of that person to do with it what would represent good stewardship. Each was expected to put the money to use and to produce more. Regardless of how much each was given, the expectation was that that money would be put to use. It would be invested, there would be interest, there would be returns on the money, and it had to be put to practice. It can't just be hidden. The Lord returned from his journey and demanded an accounting. The first 2 servants, the one who had received 5 talents, the one who had received 2 talents, had doubled the amounts that they were given. That third servant hid his money and turned it back with no increase at all. Now, the 1-talent man didn't have as much ability or perhaps opportunity as the 5-talent man, but he was expected to do what he could with what he had, and he didn't because he didn't do anything. The biggest mistake that anybody could make would be to do nothing just because we accept the fact we have limitations. Exaggerating the limitations puts us in position to be lazy, to be useless, slothful, any number of terms that might be used. The servants who did well were praised, and the servants who failed were condemned. Well done, good and faithful servant. That's to the 5-talent man. Well done, good and faithful servant. That's to the 2-talent man. But the servant who went and dug in the earth and hid his 1 talent and did nothing, and so produced nothing except the one he started with, was condemned, severely condemned by his Lord. Now, there's some lessons. There are 3 of them. Number 1, the gifts. To each one, to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability. Matthew 25, verse 15. So each one received something. We all receive something too. It's possible that you are a 5-talent person. Those who are not 5-talent persons need to be supportive of you and happy for you and bid you Godspeed on your journey of doing well, or the 2-talent person can become jealous. It's a choice as to how we respond to the talents of other people. And keep in mind, talents, as we use it, has to do with abilities. Talents, as it was used in the text, has to do with an amount of money, but it was given based on abilities. So it's something of a play on words, but it's easy to keep it separated. Each one receives something. Do you have something you can bring to the Lord in His service? The answer to that is yes. But the fact is, you don't have the same things that others do. We all have different opportunities. We all have different native abilities. We have different opportunities for schooling and training so that we will not be able to do some things. You say, well, I would like to be president of Murray State. But unfortunately, I didn't get to finish high school. Well, don't be frustrated that they won't ask you to be president of Murray State. I'm sure some days you would be thankful not to be the president of Murray State. You say, well, the salary looks good. It is better than average by far. But money is not everything. Are you a person who has some ability? Yes. Yes, you are. Do you have some opportunities? Yes, you do. So do I. And so nobody is left out, although we are all different. No two received the same gift, differing abilities and opportunities. The 5-talent man received more than the 2-talent man and more than the 1-talent man, but each received something, and each received something different from the others. I love it when I can look around a group like this and in the larger group, the church assembled, and to see all these different backgrounds and opportunities and abilities and areas of interest and areas of involvement, because there is just incredible talent among us. But we're all different. I don't know how many cooking teams we have for the Young at Hearts on Thursdays and how many cooking teams we have for the college meals on Wednesdays. Perhaps 5 or 6 or 7 different teams for each of those. I have never been asked to be on one of those teams. Perhaps I should go to church somewhere else, right? No, I don't cook. It's okay that I don't. And it would be okay if I did. But I have some abilities. You have some abilities. We don't all have the same abilities, and we certainly don't all have the same interests. Therefore, since we're different, it should be supplementary rather than competitive. Happy that some can do some things and that others can do other things, and when you put it all together, you have a body at work. But 1 Corinthians 12 would remind us that not all the parts of the body do the same things. And the ear doesn't say to the eye, I have no need of you, because the ear is good for hearing, but not very good for seeing. So the ear needs the eye needs the ear. Every part of the body needs every other part of the body for it to function properly for the good of the head. The church is the body of Christ, and since Christ is the head, we are all different body parts to function together for the glory of the head, who is Christ. So we're all different. Our native abilities differ, and our circumstances differ. Did you grow up on a farm? If so, there's a strong likelihood that you're able to do some things that a person who grew up in the city would not be able to do. You know more about a garden than a person who would have grown up in perhaps a large city where there were no gardens. Did you grow up in the home of a carpenter? It's very possible that you would know about carpentry things that others wouldn't know because there was no carpenter in the family. Everybody had other jobs. It's just common sense to understand that while our native abilities and our opportunities and our experience, our heritage is different, it doesn't mean that it's inferior just because it's different. And there should never be a sense of jealousy or competitiveness among the different parts. The gifts are different, but all the gifts are from God. And while they're different, everybody has something with which to work. James 1:17 says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation nor shadow that is cast by turning. All the gifts are from God. Some of the gifts in the New Testament times were miraculous gifts. Some were able to speak in tongues. Some were able to heal the sick, do other things. And while we don't have those exact gifts today, we have the same giver, and that is God, and everything that we have that is good came from God. We need to thank Him and to be a good steward of His blessings. So the first lesson in the parable has to do with the gifts. Second, the use of the gifts. The servants who received the larger sums immediately went to work. They invested and doubled their fortunes. While 2 of the servants attained greatness, the other servant followed a path that ended in bleak failure. First of all, here's the 5-talent man, and he receives his talents and immediately goes to work. He's able to double the 5 talents. He now has 10 when the Lord returns from the journey and demands an accounting. He has 10 talents, twice as much as he had to start with. The 2-talent man didn't begin with as much as the 5-talent man, but he produced the same percentage. That is, he doubled what he was given to start with. So he had 2 talents and he gained 2 more. So he had 4. The 1-talent man was in a rather successful group. After all, of the 3 people who received talents, the other 2 did exceptionally well. Maybe he could say, I have participated in a group that has produced rather well. And so I'll just hold on to the coattails of my fellow group members. It's not the way it works. It's an individual thing. And so we look at the gifts and the use of the gifts this way. Why did the 1-talent man fail? He did not have faith in himself. He did not have faith or have the courage to work. And number 3, he did not have faith in his master. There are a lot of things he could have said. The 1-talent man could have said, but I was conservative. Boy, he was conservative, all right. But being conservative by itself is not the goal. He was afraid. It's an honor to be conservative in the right ways. It is absolutely despicable to be afraid and fearful so much that we do nothing and we become lazy and indolent and we produce absolutely nothing with what the Lord has entrusted to our care. So why did he fail? He did not have faith in himself. He was entrusted by his Lord, and yet he didn't have self-confidence to even receive the confidence well from his Lord. There's a fine line between self-degradation and true humility. And there's a fine line between proper confidence and downright cockiness. And so we strive for balance, to be neither degrading of ourselves nor arrogant, but in here somewhere to have the right kind of self-respect, because it is God who made us and God who entrusts to us any number of abilities, opportunities, talents that we are to receive with gratitude, to be a wise steward of them, and then to present them back to Him to produce much for His glory. And so the issue here is the use of the talents. Why did he fail? He did not have faith in himself. Number 2, he did not have the courage to work. I realize that some people are mentally ill and can't help it, and so I have nothing to say except sympathetic things to say about that. But there's a difference between mental illness, over which we just don't have any control, and in downright laziness. Laziness is inexcusable for any of us. And the Lord's wrath was poured out on this 1-talent man, not because he was 1 talent, but because he was lazy, because he didn't do what he could with what he had, and he incurred the wrath of his Lord because of it. There are times we can't be successful in a certain venture. It just won't work. But there's never a time that we shouldn't give it our best effort. Honest effort, continual effort. And then when it doesn't work, if indeed that happens, then at least we can look back with the confidence of saying, I tried hard. I gave it my best effort. But when we do nothing, day after day after day, we do nothing. We're not contributing to the good of the cause, and we have every reason to understand at the end why nothing happened. There was no success. Laziness and indolence are out for you and me. They're not options for us. Although we'll produce different amounts from somebody else and we'll not compare favorably by somebody's standards, the issue is not human standards and comparisons. The issue is the approval of the Lord. And the approval of the Lord can be given to anybody who will put forth that effort and let the Lord say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And he said he would. To whom? To good and faithful servants. What does faithful mean? It means reliable. It means trustworthy. It means dependable. It has to do with an energetic effort that is an honest, good faith effort to accomplish what you set out to do. The one-talent man could not claim that. He did nothing. And his excuse was, "I was afraid." So he didn't have the courage to work. Number three, he didn't have faith in his master. He said, "I knew that you were a demanding master. I knew that you were hard. I knew that you gathered where you hadn't scattered seed." And he said, "I was afraid." And the master said to him, "You knew me. You knew I was a demanding master. But you should have gotten to work. You should have made a good faith effort, and you didn't." And so his one talent was taken from him and given to the one who had 5. Now notice, the gifts, the use of the gifts, and then the consequences of using or not using the gifts. There was a time of reckoning. The 5-talent man and the 2-talent man were told, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord." But the idle servant had the 1 talent extracted from him and given to the one with the most. And the principle here is we lose what we fail to use. Notice the accounting time now. The 5-talent man was told, "Well done, good and faithful servant." The 2-talent man received exactly the same commendation from his Lord. "Well done, good and faithful servant." The 1-talent man had the wrath of his Lord upon him because of his indolence, his detachment, his lack of faith in himself, his lack of courage to do the work, and his lack of faith in his master. And there is no sympathy given him. Weeping and gnashing of teeth, outer darkness, all these terms that are used to show the wrath of God against wickedness. We will lose what we fail to use. Here are opportunities presented to us today. Those same opportunities might not be there tomorrow. What should we do? We should seize our opportunities while they're here and then use them, utilize our means of accomplishment to the glory of the Lord, the Master who's in charge, rather than wait and wait and wait and wait. So many people who become Christians later in life will say things like, "What I would give if I had been alert enough and mature enough and energetic enough to have turned my life over to the Lord when I was young. All these years that I've wasted that I could have given to the glory of God." Now, does the Lord accept 11th hour servants? Oh, yes. Does the Lord forgive us even when we have squandered our opportunities? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He will forgive and abundantly pardon. But look at our years of productivity. All those years that we could have been doing things to bring glory to God, we didn't seize our opportunities. And sure enough, when we let ourselves fail long enough to seize those opportunities, they're gone and they'll never come back. And if we stay there long enough, we lose all of our opportunities. And that should never happen. So what we want to do by way of conclusion is to remember, why were 2 servants profitable and 1 unprofitable? The answer lies in the fact, not in the fact that the 2 were more gifted than the 1. The 2 were commended simply because they were faithful. The only thing that finally matters is whether the Lord can say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And that's the conclusion of the whole thing. Now, as we draw this to a close, think about this point of principle and application. One of my favorite verses in the New Testament is 2 Corinthians 8:12. And here the Apostle Paul is speaking in the context of giving. But the principle has to do with everything that the Lord has entrusted to our care and for which we are responsible and about which we will give account when this life is over. It says, if there is first a willing mind, it is accepted according to what a man has and not according to what he does not have. How thankful you and I can be that we will not be judged by the standard of the 5-talent man when it comes to exact productivity. If we don't have 5 talents, then it's all right to produce 2 because that's what was expected of the 2-talent man. You may have incredible abilities in certain areas and no ability, it seems, in other areas. Fine. The issue is be faithful with the abilities and the opportunities that you have. So 2 Corinthians 8:12 says, it is accepted according to what a man has and not according to what he doesn't have. You don't have the ability to do everything. I don't either. But you have the ability to do something, and I have the ability to do something, perhaps something different from you. But when you and I stop competing with each other and start supplementing each other and have real brotherhood, fellowship, where I see myself as a part of the team but not the whole team, I play the position on the team that will bring glory to the team, and then the Lord will produce the good from it. The fruit will be born to His glory. I simply am a part of it, perhaps a small part, maybe a quiet part, or perhaps I'm out front in a leadership role. It doesn't matter as long as I'm what? Faithful. Faithful is the key. It means reliable, it means dependable, it means trustworthy, and it is within the realm of possibility for 100% of us to be able to be faithful. What are your circumstances? What about your profession? What about your educational background? What about your family heritage? All the things that factor into it. We all have that. We may or may not be proud of it. It may or may not be to our advantage now. But learn from the bad and then take the good and accentuate that with to the glory of God and with the help of God so that others receive benefits as well. Try not to develop an inferiority complex that says, I'm a nobody. I didn't marry the right person, or I didn't live in the right town, or I didn't go to the right college, or I didn't. That's not the point now. The point now is, where am I? And can I reach for the strength of God and reach for the fellowship and strength and help of brothers and sisters who also struggle, who are bringing something different to the table? And when I will do what I can do with what I have where I am, and you will do what you can do with what you have where you are, and you and I will drop all of the competitive nature and the jealousy and the silliness and combine our efforts for the glory of the Lord who has empowered us, and the Lord who has saved us from our sins, and the Lord before whom we give account in the final day of judgment and reckoning, then He gets the glory. The people get the good, and we get the fulfillment of knowing that we have done something to be part of the team. It's personal fulfillment without bragging. And the people around us benefit by our influence and by our specific acts of goodness. And the Lord gets the glory and the credit and the praise through His agency, the church. And you can be part of that church, and I can too, and the Lord gets the glory. And that's what finally matters anyway. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Thank you for being here today.
Holy words.
This has been It Is Written, a weekly exploration of the Word of our living God with John Dale, minister of the Glendale Road Church of Christ. Please visit us online at www.glendaleroadchurch.org.
Words impart.